afternoon. It is so good to be with you guys here today. It's been over 6 years since I performed live. The last time was my senior year at Bowdoin. So it is with a little bit of trepidation that I'm inviting a small group of friends, mostly from Bowdoin and Deloitte, into this living room today with the hope that you will forgive me for pretending that I can still play. So much has happened over the last few months that is incredibly humbling, and I hope that you and your families are safe. I am incredibly lucky to be able to spend this crazy time away from the city here in upstate New York with my family, and of course to be reunited with my piano. Now, one of the things I love doing the most is traveling. Unfortunately, that is not an option at the moment. But I realize what I can do is to play music set in places that I love and places I'd love to visit, and to be able to share that with all of you. So here goes. We began today in one of my favorite cities, Paris, with 2 selections from the great French Baroque master JEAN-PHILIPPE, whose music the fellow Frenchman Claude Debussy described as delicate and charming without any of that German need to underline and explain everything. Now clearly Debussy was a little bit biased, but his point is well taken that German and French Baroque music were really worlds apart. And so for our next set, we will travel east to Leipzig for a few selections by Rameau's German contemporary, Johann Sebastian Bach. Now, rather than play Bach's original pieces for the keyboard, I will be playing selections from an organ sonata and a violin partita, arranged for the keyboard by 2 great admirers of Bach, Stradal and Sergei Rachmaninov. I hope you enjoy. also such a fun piece to learn. You can hear some of the voices. Sometimes they're farther apart. Sometimes they're literally on top of each other, which is so much fun to play. All right, so now we're going to take a trip up north to Wales with a suite by Felix Mendelssohn. There's a reason I chose Mendelssohn next, because Mendelssohn's musical hero was Bach, and he spent the better part of his life championing Bach's music. You will hear so much of Bach's influence in this next piece, whether that's the chorale or the counterpoint, fugue structure, and the like. But what I suspect is more interesting is to talk about the story behind why young Felix wrote these pieces. Felix Mendelssohn was in his early 20s when he launched his musical career with a grand European tour that took him all throughout the continent and finally up to England, Scotland, and Wales. In Wales, he stayed with the Taylor family in their country residence, where he took in the scenery, played a little music, but spent the majority of the time flirting with Mr. Taylor's 3 daughters, for whom Felix wrote the next pieces. In the first fantasia, you will hear the rising and falling arpeggiations that suggest the wafting of the scent from Anne's roses and carnations. The second fantasia begins with a trumpet fanfare, and that motif repeats throughout the piece, which is reminiscent of the trumpet-like flowers in Honora's garden. And finally, for Susan, the most beautiful of the girls, you will hear the flowing strings along which Susan and Felix would run around and play, and the gentle sounds of the Welsh harp that Susan played. So hopefully I'll do justice to the music and you'll get to hear all of that. So before we part ways today, I just want to say that even though I have officially regressed in life by accomplishing the milestone of my 27th year by moving back in with parents, many of you guys are actually progressing in life quite nicely. So here are a couple of shout-outs. First, to Joanna and Nick. You know, I was very much looking forward to crashing your wedding this summer, but turns out you guys unceremoniously eloped a couple weeks ago. So basically, y'all owe me a party. And since I'm stuck here in upstate New York with literally nothing to do, I'm available like every weekend. So your call. Next, to another Bowden wedding in a couple of weeks, Charlotte and Oscar. You know, Char, to anyone who says that fully grown homeless strategy consultants can't find happiness, well, you've certainly proved my grandmother wrong. Congratulations to you both. To Colin, I always knew that I'd wiggle my way into your wedding party somehow, and since today is your wedding day, and your whole family's watching, I'd call that mission accomplished. A lifetime of happiness to you and Christina. To Lauren, who is expecting a visit from the stork in a couple of weeks. You know, Kylie and I had appointed ourselves as the kids' god-siblings. Not that you had any say in the matter, but we thought that this would be a nice medium to convey that message to you and to wish you such good luck. And finally, to all my friends who are medical professionals and first responders in Boston, New York, and all around the country, thank you for being our everyday heroes. We appreciate everything that you do. All right, moving on to our final piece, where we'll take a trip to a place close to my heart, Northern Italy. Now, this is the one piece that I'm bringing back from many, many years ago. It was part of my core repertoire in high school, and I brought it back to close out my senior recital at Bowden in 2014. And I hope in a minute you'll know why I love this piece so much. If there's anything that you know about Franz Liszt, it's probably that he was perhaps the greatest pianist that has ever lived. He was also a little bit of a show-off, and operatic transcriptions were often his showpieces to showcase his virtuosic prowess. This particular piece depicts a single number in the final act of Verdi's opera Rigoletto, Bella figlia dell'amore, Beautiful Daughter of Love. The opera tells the tragic love story between the licentious Duke of Mantua and his court jester's daughter, Gilda. Now, after Gilda was seduced by the Duke, she was convinced that they were in love. Her father, though, knew better, so to convince her that the Duke is actually a terrible human, he takes Gilda out in front of a house one night where the Duke could be heard seducing another woman. It is this singular moment where four characters, four voices, four completely different emotional worlds collide that Liszt chooses to transcribe into this masterful piano work. It is such a fantastic piece, and I hope you enjoy it. So I've had so much fun spending this last half hour, 45 minutes with you, and I hope before long we'll get to see each other in person once again. Until then, have a smashing rest of your summer.